youth panel. That's you folks. I'm going to do a little introduction for say a few words about each of you. You've each given us a bio, so I'm going to read those out, and then I'm going to turn it over to Akira, who has been here before, is a veteran from the youth panel. All right, I will turn it over to Akira, who was on the youth panel. What year was your youth panel? Thank you. 2021, Akira was on the youth panel, is now back to join us as the moderator. So Akira Hesslein was there it is, right there, was a youth panelist in the first iteration of Skipping Stone panel in 2021. It's right in front of me. I should just read my script. And is now a first-year student in gender studies here at UVic. During her time in Alberta, she was active in organizing activism in response to current anti-trans legislation and benefited greatly from the support and guidance of Skipping Stone. In her free time, she works to communicate the experiences of trans youth through music and is very excited to be moderating this panel of incredible people. Thank you, Akira. Okay. Devin, two people over. Devin, raise your hand. Devin Afkir is Métis and Berber Moroccan, who is 17 years old. He uses he, they, or any pronouns, and currently identifies as gender fluid, but given that gender is an evolving journey, that may change. Devin is passionate about art, music, writing, culture, and advocacy. They live with 3 birds and a crazy cute dog named Otis, who he treasures. Devin prides himself on advocating for others, especially the queer community, and is growing to learn more about his cultures as time goes on. That's Devin. And Chris, raise your hand on this end. Chris Wong, he, him, is a first-year undergraduate student studying statistics and public health at the University of Toronto. He is a first-generation trans-masculine immigrant, a proud member of Richmond, BC's Chinese population, and despite being 18, still does not have his N license. When he's not working on a calculus problem set, now, I was at something recently where I met someone who liked this kind of stuff, and they came up to me and they said, "Do you want to hear a math joke?" And amazingly, I got the joke. I understood it. So Chris enjoys playing competitive trivia, reading fan fiction, and researching sex ed. He also likes to use his space to thank the U of T Sexual Education Center, where he volunteers on a weekly basis, and the Women and Gender Studies Department, in particular Dr. Angie Fazakis and Yules Martins for their continued mentorship. So that's Chris. Okay, and Ayana, raise your hand. Ayana is 15 and uses he, him pronouns. He's from Prince George, BC, with a family background in Kenya, which is in East Africa, and Western Europe. He is a grade 10 student who enjoys trying out different clubs and activities and learning more about the world through documentaries and opportunities. He's very passionate about musical theater and many other hobbies such as badminton and guitar. Ayana wishes to share the joy he has of learning about life experiences while sharing the good and the bad of his own trans experience. Ayana. Okay, and Evie. Evie is a 14-year-old trans girl living her best life in rural Nova Scotia. In rural Nova Scotia with her dogs, cat, and her mom. Evie channels her boundless energies into a broad range of hobbies and activities, including foraging for plants and mushrooms, creating new worlds through her art practice, performing in drag as Sassafras Smalls, and being a sporty spice playing on her school's soccer, volleyball, cross-country teams. Evie has been a passionate advocate for trans and gender nonconforming youth since she was 6, when she started hosting pop-up workshops for families about gender. She presented at Pride at Work national webinar on supporting parents of 2S LGBTQ+ kids, hosted a workshop on supporting gender diverse students for the Southwest Nova Scotia Teachers Union, and spoke at a WE Day event in front of 11,000 people. She's successfully advocated for books with queer representation for her school's library and the creation of a pride mural at her school, a collaboration of queer artists and the GSA. Evie is featured in the documentary series, Translations, which explores the lives of a diverse group of trans individuals and their advocates at a remote retreat in Nova Scotia. The amazing Evie. Okay, Akira, I turn it over to you.
Thank you. All right, I'm in charge now. Hi, I'm Akira. I'm 18 years old. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm in charge. I'm the moderator. You guys introduce yourselves now.
Hi, I'm Chris. Is this thing on? Okay, great. Hi, my name's Chris. I feel like there's nothing mysterious about me anymore. I'm 18. The bio is kind of a lie. At U of T, I have to apply for my positions of post-secondary teaching, so pray to God that they let me into statistical sciences, which is the worst department at U of T. But I really want to get in. That's what I'll say.
Hi, I'm Devin. I use he, they, any pronouns. I'm 17. I'm from Hinton, Alberta, which is on Treaty 6 territory. And feel like I'm missing something. But yeah, that's me.
Hello. My name's Ayanna. I use he, him pronouns. I'm 15, almost 16. And I'm from Prince George, British Columbia, which is on the unceded territory of the Clay-Laitanais. And a little bit in my bio, I enjoy musical theater, and I'm actually about like 8 days away from opening night for, thank you, for The Wizard of Oz, where I'm playing the Cowardly Lion. So, thank you.
Hello, my name's Evie. I'm 14. I use she, her pronouns. I'm also known as Sassafras Smalls in the drag world. And I'm from Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people, also known as Nova Scotia. Yeah, I'm just a small town trans activist who likes walking my dogs and baking.
We'll start simple. What is a favorite story of yours about being trans? Just in general.
I can go. So I guess like a couple of stories that I have of being like trans and growing up trans and like what it means for me as someone who's like a young adult going into the adult world, having people to rely on me in their transitions. So I guess like a story that I could share about that is that recently a friend of mine came out to me as trans, and I was the first person that they came out to in like more than just like a passing phrase, if that makes sense. And they asked me a lot of questions, and they really shared their insecurities with me, and I've got to see them transition and just be happier as a person. And I think that that was very meaningful for me as someone who is still a youth, given the fact that I'm on this panel, but is moving up in that world and is taking space as like a trans mentor. And it's got me thinking a lot about like what does it mean to be someone that people look up to in the trans space. And yeah, that's kind of something that I wanted to share.
Okay, my story's not necessarily around being trans, but like being around trans people. So I have a partner who's also trans masculine, and I was on the phone with him one day, and my dad was doing laundry, and as he's doing laundry, I kind of like randomly call people and don't really tell my family I'm on the phone. And he pokes his head out and he goes, "Who are you talking to?" And I was like, "Oh, my partner." And he goes, "This is him?" And then he goes like, "Hi, buddy." And it was just it was just a really sweet moment. My partner uses they he pronouns, and like it was really just a gender affirming experience for them. Um and yeah, it was really sweet. And then like another story I have is like um being involved in the indigenous community like locally. I like have struggled like kind of like finding my place as a two-spirit person, but there's two really great people at our local friendship center that have like always really supported my like identity and just experience with gender, and they've been really affirming. And like they both are working towards like including two spirit and indigiqueer people in ceremony, and yeah, it's just been really awesome to be around people who just support you no matter what. Yeah.
Hey. So, as you heard earlier in the bio that I did not know was going to be shared, kind of embarrassing. Um, for one of those like pop-up workshops that I did, my very first one was a very big turnout, and I got to meet so many other trans people, and that was just a very big moment for me to be able to see all of those other trans and queer people, and it just made me feel so happy. Um, and then another one of those workshops later on, um, I was like doing my whole spiel, and there was this like one like grandma who was in like the front row and was writing notes the entire time and just kept looking down at her notebook, and I was just like, what's going on there? And so at the end I was walking down the aisle, and I just took a little peek, and all it said on this notebook was they/them, and that just really warmed my heart to see her trying to like learn and grow.
My story isn't exactly a story. Um, for a little bit of context, the first person I came out to was my sister when I was like, I think 12. Um, and then ever since then, I was kind of like half in the closet. Not exactly being so open, but not hiding it. Um, So, uh, so I don't have many experiences exactly hanging out in the community and being in trans groups and things until recently, obviously. um, but a story that I think I'll share is when I was coming out to her. It took like an hour just to like say the words and actually like fully build up the courage to say what I want to say. And then I had also tried earlier in that month to come out to her, but then I got scared and I was like, no, I won't say anything today. So then when I finally did, she was like, I actually have in my notes app, Ayanna will come out to me. So, you know, you hear about this happening like with family members' reactions, but when it happens to you, it's like, oh, I guess you know me that well. Um, and then when I came out to my mom late last year, actually, um, it also took like an hour-long conversation, but this time it was actually talking and not just me being like, no, I won't say anything. Um, but it, I know people use the expression like the weight's being lifted off my shoulders a lot, but I genuinely like felt lighter, and it's an experience that I'll never forget because it just felt so amazing. So that's my story.
So one thing I'm definitely noticing across all of these is that community is obviously really big, from small town Alberta to Toronto. And so I wanted to ask, how has the existence of or lack of trans community around you shaped your shaped or affected your trans experience?
Feel expected to talk. I guess like first of all, I really wanted to acknowledge everyone's stories. I thought that they were all beautiful and fascinating. Thank you for sharing them. Evie, I know that you've been very instrumental in like building community ever since you were 6 years old, which is extremely impressive. And also like the stories on culture and everything like that. Yeah, it's very impactful being here. I guess something that I'll share is that I think that when we talk about like trans communities, your community does not necessarily have to say forthright that it is queer for it to be a queer community. Growing up, I was not very involved in my school's like GSA, or as we called it, the Pride Club. I just wasn't. But I was very much in charge of like the art club. And at some point, the art club was run by all trans people. And it's just like, I mean, yeah. But it's like, we made a safe space. We made a trans-friendly space ran by trans people without necessarily stating that it is trans. And I think these kinds of like youth-run community spaces, I mean, like the part of community that I think really matters is that you just consistently show up. I think that's how you build community, is that you show up for each other, you show up for your networks. And so, yeah, I don't know. I don't think I've ever, apart from going to university, I don't think I was ever a part of like any specific like queer space that was called a queer space. It's just that I knew a lot of queer people who were interested in building spaces, and those spaces inherently are queer. And so that's kind of my experience with that.
Okay. Okay, good. Just making sure. Yeah. So like my community is like a very like it's a very like obviously like community is like everything, and my community is kind of all over like Alberta, and I guess now kind of all over Canada. Um and and yeah, so my community, like Chris was saying, like it's not inherently queer, but also there happens to be a lot of queer people in it. Like living in small town Alberta, I don't like there's about under 10,000 people as a population, and I think maybe 500 of them are queer, and maybe 100 of those are youths, and maybe 20 of them are kids around my age. So it's a very small pool of queer people to like get to know and pick from, and um, I kind of have found community mostly through like other places, like online programs that Skipping Stones has run, and um, like Camp Firefly, which is hosted by U of A's Firefly Institute every summer. And just like I found my queer people, and I found where I belong mostly through like online connection and just through outside sources, because again, like small towns don't really have much resources for queer people, although they are getting better slowly. But yeah, like, and that's kind of like helped me realize like I don't necessarily need to have like people nearby to feel like I belong. Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing. That I kind of just forgot what I was saying because of that. Okay, there it is. Um, well, in Prince George, I guess um, some experiences in my community um, have kind of like come to me, instead of me like searching for them. So one story time is that there was a parenting gender diverse youth um, workshop that I went to, and it was about like a little less than a dozen people showed up. But by the end of it, the parents, because it was mostly parents, uh, they were like in tears um, because they were worried about their kids' future. So it was really meaningful as a youth um, to see that. Um, and I think that's why those spaces are so important. And I also kind of have another little story about getting my first binder. Um, we my mom and I, because she helped me get it, we didn't know a lot about where to get it. So she was like, I really want you to try it on in person so you can really um, see how it fits. So we drove from Prince George to Edmonton, and then we had to order it in. So then, after however long it took, then it didn't fit properly for the whole day. So then we drove to Grand Prairie and got another one. So then, actually, at that parenting workshop, the person who showed me the poster for the workshop and was like, "You should come to this," was actually like, "Oh, we have a foundry where you can get a binder like down the street." So, so that was kind of not lack of community, but lack of knowledge of. So, yeah.
But also like with that story, right? It shows like the effort that your parents, especially your mother, the effort that your mother was willing to put for you because she did drive you out. And I think that's very valuable that you had that. And that's also community, right? Yeah.
I love you, Mom.
Aww.
And this got me thinking about family, what family means to people. Family is community. I was meaning to share a story, but I didn't. So my mother definitely has suspicions, but I never actually told her that I'm trans because like to me it doesn't really matter. I think like Chris Reed said something during the Two Spirit panel that was about how like to them like they are their parents' son and their sibling's sister, and they don't really care what anyone thinks of them because the trans experience to them is so personal. And I just really resonated with that because for me, I'm always going to be my mom's daughter. No matter what I look like, I'm always going to be that. And so I never told her that I'm trans, but I did tell her that I was changing my name, which she took surprisingly well because I was given a Chinese name. I'm a first-time immigrant. I was given a Chinese name by my grandfather, who has since passed away, and it means Wang Huaran, which is like, if anyone knows the proverb Huaran Yixin, it's like something along the lines of like turning a new leaf, and like reinventing yourself and all of that, which is fitting for a trans person. Um, but that's the name that I was given. And so the story with my dead name, my English dead name, is that my stepbrother printed out 100 names, like top 100 baby girl names, cut them all up into a hat, made me pick out two, and then he was like, this one sounds better. That's gonna be your name now. And so we don't really have any significance attached to like any of my English names. And so I told my mom, I was like, oh, I want to change my name to Chris. And she was like, okay. How are you spelling it? And I was like, with a C. And she was like, oh, you can't go by Chris with a CH. Because it's gonna be spelt out like washroom, WC, and I can't have my kid named that. I can't have my name. I like that there's one person in the audience who knows exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah. I was like, you can't be named that. But she was fine with it. She was completely fine with it. There has been a time where like I forgot that I told her, and so I went by my dead name. She was like, I thought you went by Chris. What happened? I was like, Mom, I'm flattered that you remember, but I'm also like, it was embarrassing for me. But it's like, I don't know. It's something about like the cultural differences, I think, of like what it means to be trans and what is important to you gender wise and what is important to you culturally, because I know for a fact that if I change my Chinese name, it would cause hell. My mom would be very upset. But because it's a name that doesn't really mean anything and ultimately was picked out of a hat, it was like, you know, now it has more meaning. And so I think my mom is actually happier because I don't think she liked the old name very much. So yeah, that's my story.
So, for queer community and stuff, when I was really young, I started going to Pride with my mom, and that's where I like first started to like build a lot of community and going to Pride events and just seeing just waves of queer people. It just was really cool to be able to look up to so many people, and it like really was like a jumping off point for finding out who I am, because like me as a trans, I never really just came out to my mom. I was more like, instead of being I am this, I am not this.
Cool. Okay. Thank you all for sharing. These were all really wonderful stories. Chris, I want to build on what you said about culture. And so I guess I wanted to ask, taking a step out from community and into wider culture, I know that as a group, you all come from many, many, many different cultures. And I wanted to ask, how has your culture at large shaped how you view gender, shaped how you view the trans experience?
Okay, I think I'm gonna take this away because I am, of many different descents. I'm Métis, Cree, Mi'kmaq, and Moroccan and North. We're from my dad and I are from a North African, and my brother are from a North African tribe known as the Berber or the Amazigh. They were the like very first mountain people of Morocco. And I think, like, speaking on culture and just how it shapes identity, I think for me, like, when I first came out, I was very much more like, I'm sorry, I'm trying to find the word, more preoccupied with colonial standards. And I was very much a binary trans man when I first came out. And I think now that as I learn more about my cultures, like my indigenous culture, I genuinely feel like I'm more kind of in between and like neither, but also both at the same time within my indigenous culture. And then in Amazigh culture, a little tidbit, the women of the Amazigh tribe used to be warriors. And they used to go and, fight wars. And they were the providers for family. And I think something that was kind of like what led me to a bit of a gender crisis, because I realized these women were badass. And I really, really wanted to feel involved in that womanhood and being, a strong woman. I think for me, my gender identity relies more on strength than it does with like anything else. And so it's it's a little weird when you're kind of navigating through like 3 different cultures and like the like rules and regulations and everything that goes with culture. And I think just like on a spiritual level, my gender identity is like a lot more fluid. And I think like just going between cultures and like from being like an Amazigh woman to a binary trans man in colonial standards to kind of non-binary in indigenous spaces, and kind of like that intermix of just being like a really unique person with culture has really shaped my identity. I'm always looking to learn more. Um, and I'm really proud of where I come from. I'm especially proud of, well, my indigenous ancestry and my Amazigh ancestry because like it's for me it's like so cool to be a part of something so like ancient but so inclusive. And I think like there's definitely some drawbacks with being a part of those cultures. Like for example, Morocco is very much still pretty homophobic and very much against like homophobic acts, and it's very like it's still very like criminalized. And so like I can for now I'm not going to Morocco and I'm not going to actually like get to step foot and learn about my culture in like an immersive environment. But I think like other than that, it's just been like really awesome to learn about my culture. And like also as Two-Spirit in the indigenous culture, like there's definitely, especially in small towns, I feel there's definitely a lot of there's a lack of knowledge. And I think like it's just so it's so gratifying to be the reason that people want to learn more. And I think, yeah, so like my culture has fully influenced my gender in all kinds of ways. And I think, yeah, no, like culture, it's just, I just find it so fascinating. And I find it so, like, it's just, culture is so perfect, but like also just like, you know, there's lack of knowledge everywhere. And I think, you know, like being, like I said, being the reason for people wanting to learn and relearn those traditional ways and those that knowledge that was there previously, it's just an awesome opportunity. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for that. That was beautiful. Um, Kind of touching on a little bit of the bad part of what you said. Um, I'm Kenyan, as you heard in the introduction. Um, so my relationship with being trans and also being African has kind of been like um, not a very good one, honestly. It's built a lot of fear in me. Uh, so I kind of in the little spaces that I have um, tried to get into in queer spaces, I haven't really found exactly where I fit in, and I don't like exactly relate to, you know, the majority of people there. Like I find that at least in the spaces that I've been in, there aren't a lot of trans people of color. Thank you. Um, so some of the experiences, like uh, the first one that came to mind was like my first trans mask haircut. It wasn't what other people talk about because for me it was just when I was younger I went from like this big, I'm not even gonna call it an afro because that would be disrespecting the people with very good afros. It was not that, but it went from something to very very short, just because of trying to be able to take care of my hair type, and it wasn't for the reason of being trans. I didn't even really know that yet. Uh, just grew up very masculine, and I was like, no, I'm a girl. And when everyone would say whatever. But anyway, so when coming out, a big fear of mine was kind of with my dad. I still haven't come out to him, but He was born and raised in Kenya and still works overseas in Africa. So we don't fully communicate a lot. So I don't know exactly where his views are on that. But when coming out, I had a big fear that um, like that maybe my dad wouldn't be accepting because maybe he isn't used to it because as Devin kind of mentioned, in probably most, almost all of African countries, it is illegal and you can go to prison in Kenya. So that was a big worry of mine and sorry and um so uh trying to kind of like overcome the thought of that um I I wouldn't be like not a true Kenyan because being trans is like a Western concept, I guess. Um, so that those are kind of the feelings that not a lot of people in the spaces that I find would understand because they don't have um, to kind of worry about those other countries where all my family lives and things like that. So um, it does. There is a positive. Um, there are a lot of people everywhere in the world who are trans and who are so different and unique. So it's obviously not what my fear was, just to put it out there. Um, so yeah, I kind of lost where I wanted to end that, but thank you for listening.
Okay, so I'm a very big part of like drag and stuff. Drag is very big for me. I love doing drag. I have a very great drag family, very supportive, and I really love like the drag culture and how it's helped me like find who I am. Because with like doing drag, I've been able to just go from femme Evie to hyper femme Evie. And it's really just been a great way to be able to exercise my ability to and my creativity to see who I am and who I want to be and how I want to be seen. And just like feeling like and finding all of this like community and culture with like all of these other drag performers and how supportive they can be through this process is really, it's really cool. Yeah.
For what it's worth, talking about like not having like the trans mask haircut or like hyper femininity and whatever. When I first came out, I grew out my hair all the way to my hips. I had like those like really straight like if people know what it is, like the Hime cut bangs like all the way up. Because I was like, man, I really just want to look like an anime character. That's what I want to do in my life. Um, and so that's just how I presented. And so it's like, I don't know, I get that a lot. It's like the feeling of like not fitting into like what it necessarily means for you to like be trans in this like in a very colonial white supremacist setting of like this is what you have to look like if you're trans and this is what you have to portray if you're trans. Yeah, no, I think there's a space for everyone, and I think that if we don't have a space for everyone yet, we need to make those spaces, and that's why we're here. So, yeah.
I'm gonna be honest, I'm never sure how to follow up your guys' amazingness. I know I'm also amazing, but that's not the point here. um, Thank you, Chris, for giving me an excellent segue. Speaking of space and of creating space for trans people and specifically trans youth, I wanted to ask, as the trans youth, how do we create more space for you, for us, and why is it important to do that?
I don't know, do more stuff like this. Get us out there, get us visible. Um, give trans youth the space to actually voice our thoughts instead of us just being paraded around as an example of, let's say, harm, or let's say just as faces. Let us talk, let us make our own spaces, give us the funding and the space physically, temporally. We've talked about that before, where it's like people don't have the time to do these things. Give us the time to do these things, make us feel like we can have these communities. As adults, I find that that's very important for us to think about. It's really weird calling myself an adult in this youth panel, but but yeah, that's my 2 cents on it. I'm sure you guys have more things to say.
Okay, that's going to be really hard to follow up. No, everything you said was amazing. I agree like 100%. Um, I do think like, yeah, like, wow. I really don't know what to say. Um, yeah, just like, I know that like everywhere we need space, like around the world, and we need to be seen around the world. Um, there is so many of us that like we were talking about this at dinner or something like last night. Yeah, over dinner last night, and just how many people and how many trans youth applied for this opportunity, and just how amazing it is to be here, but also the fact that there are so many trans youth out there with the support to be able to apply for an opportunity like this, let alone how many are just kind of hidden in the shadows. I think it's so important that, like, I mean, honestly, like, things and opportunities like this need to keep happening for trans youth, and we need to be seen. It's so important to just like just in the queer experience and just in human experience, let alone queer experience. It's just so important to see different people and to see just the variety and the uniqueness that is human life. And it's just so important, like, so important to be able to see just like how different people do different things. Like, being trans is not necessarily, you know, copy paste. We are all very different. I mean, like, this panel itself is full of unique people. And I think it's just so important that we continue to present and show these people to the world. Yeah.
Yes. Um, I also think that not only is it very important for like youth to be able to like be seen in these kind of spaces, I think it's also really important to just have spaces where youth can just be themselves without having to be seen. Um, and like not only youth, also like kids, and like so that they can start finding who they want to be while they're young before like puberty and stuff, so that it's like easier for them to be able to see just like all of what they want to be.
Yeah, I mean, all of you not leaving anything for me. um, um, well, I think that, um, you know, outside of places like this where we can really share our thoughts and feelings, um, I just want to give an example of my school, how that has kind of built a space that I think all schools should have. Um, so at the beginning of a semester with different classes, some of the teachers give out papers where you can write your name and then preferred name and then preferred pronouns and which ones you can use at home. So there's an option for at school and which ones to use at home. So, and well, in some places in Canada, sadly, it's probably not going to be an option. I don't know where it is like for um, those of you who are outside of BC. Um, but oh yeah, like Chris was saying though, um, with like the art and like with theater, I think having space. Oh, you were also saying this too. Having spaces that isn't like kind of labeled as queer spaces, but having a space where theater is very widely known to be a pretty safe space. So having these spaces where we can express ourselves, because a lot of youth can't come to places like this, so school is their safe place. You know, the lunchtime GSA. So I think just having those, but yeah, giving us a place to speak out about our opinions so that we can keep these spaces. At my school, it stands for Gay Straight Alliance, but I believe there's also other things that it can stand for. Um, Gender Sexuality Alliance, yes. So, yeah.
So, um, very much of like how you were saying, how just like with like the GSAs and like the clubs and stuff, I feel like a lot of more of like outside of school spaces for like youth is great, but not. But I think it shouldn't just be like advertised out to the world because that can be very like that can just attract a lot of like of those gross trolls who will start just like being mean. So I think like um like spreading the word about those spaces through like the GSAs and those like queer centered groups is very important so that it can be even like safer and more inclusive. That's it.
I'm going to ask something that's not on the script. Get ready. All right. This is going to be a bit of a loaded question, so I want you all to pretend that the audience isn't here. But we've been talking about all of these things that need to be done. And I'm going to ask honestly, how do we think adults are doing at that? Do things need to be changed? Honest opinions.
I think there are a lot of adults that are trying and working really hard, but I think we also just need more. Um, like we don't need we need like both quantity and quality. Like we need more like adults to come and like stand up and create these spaces and speak out and like more allies and stuff. Yeah, hope that
Okay. I'm gonna be perfectly honest. Um, like you said, like, yeah, there's a bunch of adults who are trying their absolute hardest. But what I do think, and I think I might have said this a couple years ago when I was on this panel, um, like I think something that's really important about like adults, especially trans adults, and just seeing them for me is kind of like it's like knowing like I know like I've worked with trans adults and like in the peer mentorship program that Skipping Stone does and so many different like other facets, I've kind of learned like that it's kind of like given me hope. Um that there is like another side to just the craziness that is being a youth and that like like trans kids and trans youths can go on to be trans adults and I think it's just really important to just know that that's there. And I think like trans adults and queer adults and queer adults and trans adults just show that, you know, just by walking and existing, that we do have futures. And I think it's just like very comforting to know that. Yeah.
Hi. So there was this presentation at a panel that Akira and I actually attended that was about how we need to reframe trans youth around this idea of like desire instead of always about risk. So instead of talking about how many of us for lack of a better word, like have worse lives because we are trans, instead of like reframing it around like joy and positivity and the desire of being trans. There's this, not to sound like me, but there's this really good Andrea Long Chu article on the New Yorker that's about how like trans kids should be allowed to undergo hormone therapy just because they can. It's a right that we should allow kids to have. And I think that that's really important too. It's like, not only do adults give us hope, do trans adults give us hope that we can, we have futures and that we can live, but we also give the community at large hope that, you know, the most that we can do as trans youth is survive. Surviving is powerful, surviving is political. And I think that like having us out here and like listening to us talk and reframing this discussion around like the good parts of being a trans youth instead of always talking about these really depressing statistics, like that's something that I would like to see more of. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean what Chris said, having these places where we can just be ourselves. What I personally think that adults are doing pretty good, at least most of them, because we have people like at Skipping Stone who are sticking out for us or sticking up for us, and I personally like don't have the money in my back pocket to be able to come out here and well my mom probably does, but I I just shovel my neighbor's snow in the winter, so I'm not making so much, but giving the opportunity for us to come out and talk here instead of adults always talking on our behalf. Thank you. Because I feel like in a lot of cases, we're at, well, some of us are at a kind of middle age, not middle age, but middle of youth age, young adults, where in some things adults kind of expect certain things of us, but in other ways kind of like belittle us. So I think for important things like our own lives, we should have opinions on ourselves. So yeah, places to actually let us talk.
If you didn't have to worry about just surviving, like Chris said, if you could just do whatever, if transphobia wasn't a thing and you could just live, what would you want to do?
I mean, exactly that, live. I guess in ways like, God, it's so hard to imagine a world where we're safe And I mean, that's really like, that's really sad. But what I do want to say is, I think if we didn't have to worry and we didn't have to like always prove ourselves, ooh, um, I think, I don't know. I like, I personally would just want to live. Like, just live, just be, just exist. There's something like my family always says, live and let live. And I think that's just something that like needs to happen for our world. Because like, who cares? At the end of the day, who cares? We're all here for reasons or others. Who cares? We're all like, we're all here for whatever amount of time we're here for. And I think it's just, yeah, just live. I think I just want to live. And I think like if there was anything that I look forward to, um, you know, we all have dreams. I always think that like, in a future, if, I mean, I really hope that I can see in my lifetime a future where trans people are just living. And yeah, no, I just feel like, sorry, I'm trying to put a thought together. I feel like, um, yeah, trans people just need to live. I can't stress that enough. And I think like, yeah, like we just need to do what we do. And there's so many like, whether that's creatively or academically or theatrically, there's, yeah, just living. Like, I think if I didn't have to worry, I just want to live. Yeah.
I have a very specific example for this, because I was thinking about it with my partner. I was talking to him about this. So some of you may know, the people on this panel know that I was supposed to go to not an international. I was supposed to go to a national trivia tournament yesterday, and I qualified my team, but I couldn't go to nationals because I had to be here. And I love being here. I learned so much during this experience, but it's got me thinking about all of the opportunities that I have quote unquote lost because of the activist work that I do, and also because I'm trans. I'm not sure if people know about this. There is a trivia tournament that happens every year that takes place in Chicago. It's a very big deal, and we were supposed to qualify basically. And people talk to me about it. They're like, "Chris, you're really good. You could go to Chicago. You could go to Chicago." My partner wants to go to Chicago, but given the state of the world, I don't think I'm going to Chicago. And it's like, I would love to because it's something. It's a bit of a milestone in my academic trivia career. Which sounds ridiculous, but it's true. It's a bit of a milestone to like go there and represent your university and be there with your friends and like have a great time in Chicago. But it's like, it's in Chicago. I'm not going to Chicago. And so it's like this freedom of travel, I think, and also the freedom, as Devin said, to live, to exist, to be able to hug your friends and be able to tell your family that you're safe and not have people worry about you. I think that that's very important. I don't know. I think there are also other factors in life, obviously, that are preventing this, not just transphobia. Like, we could go on and on and on and on and on about, like, capitalism and whatever, whatever. But it's like, that's kind of what I'm thinking about in terms of that.
So, I think I would turn my trans advocacy and do more ocean advocacy because I really love the ocean and I want to be a marine biologist when I grow up. So, I like would do more advocacy for like coral reefs and the species being lost. But I'm not going to get too deep into that because that might take a couple more conferences worth. So
I'll also say that Evie's a really good surfer. Evie's a really good surfer.
I don't know, I only surfed once.
Okay, but you sounded really impressive when you talked about it. I'm gonna hype you up.
No, yeah, we loved listening to you name everything that you saw in the water yesterday. So that was that was amazing. Honestly, I had like I had like the exact same answer as Devin. The first thing that I thought of was live. Um, and so just to kind of say the baseline of what everyone else said, um, I I think I think I would have come out sooner. Honestly, I wouldn't have waited so many years, um, because the main thing was like disappointing my family, because I didn't want to be like the talk of the family, the new drama that's going on, and not having that fear if we didn't have to worry about transphobia. And I mean, just thinking of like how much my life would have changed if that were to happen, the first thing that came to mind was that I probably could already be on like HRT, and maybe because currently I am on the waiting list, but it's been like 5 months, so it's a big waiting game. Um, it's a really it's a really recurring, is that the word? It's a really recurring thing with being trans, is waiting to find yourself, waiting to come out, waiting to get appointments, waiting for stuff to come in, waiting for the changes, and just waiting to live. So I think if we didn't have to worry about transphobia, we wouldn't have that extra step and could start living. So
This was supposed to be the final optimistic question. um, let's try a final optimistic question again. Out of everything on this panel, out of everything we've said, what most do you want people to take away from it?
I'll speak on behalf of these wonderful kiddos because I think you guys are going to need a little bit more time to think. I just want people to know that trans youth are smart. Trans youth have opinions. Trans youth are seeing what's going around, and we want to talk. There were like 100+ people who applied to be on this panel that couldn't make it here. 300 people. That's a lot of people, guys. That's a lot of people who all wanted to share all their experiences. And I know there are so many other youth who, if we just give them the platform to, they would be saying probably smarter things than we currently are saying right now. Like, I don't mean that as a diss to us. I mean that as just like collectively, we are stronger in numbers, you know? And it's like, yeah, that's what I wanted to say. I also wanted to thank everyone on this panel because I think you're all very lovely and you all have such insightful things to share with the rest of us. I don't know, not to sound like an old person, but that's kind of what I wanted to say. You guys are gonna clown on me for saying that.
Truthfully, I didn't know if we'd make it to the end of this panel without you saying you were old at least once. You're a year older than me. You're still a child. It's perfectly fine. I think I think what I really want, what I really want people to take away from this, and I think not even people, but I think just us, is just like knowing that like we are a community and we do exist. And like, I think anytime queer people come together, it is beautiful. And being queer is such a unique experience. And just like, I've always like had this little like quote in the back of my mind that I've like constantly like referred to, but like, we are queer and we are here. And I think like, there's just, you're all amazing people. And I remember having this conversation of just like queer love is different. Like, I don't even mean romantic love, but I just mean the love that we all share for each other is so impactful. And yeah, no, I want people to know that we're a community and we're here for each other. And that no matter what, like, we are queer and we're going to be here. And yeah.
Well, I think like with that, with that parent workshop that I was talking about, um, just seeing that there's so many people wanting to come together and wanting to support each other. Like with everything bad that's happening, like look around right now. This is amazing. Which is kind of what everyone else was saying, but just like taking an extra moment, I guess. And oh, what was, oh, um, I think as parents or as allies or trans adults, um, specifically for trans youth, I think just showing unconditional love and support, because I think that a lot of people forget that every human being is constantly finding themselves, not just during their youth, but throughout their whole life. Um, so positive. Um, yeah. Just be there for each other and be here and be queer.
Okay. So that's gonna be hard to follow. um so yeah, something to like take away is kind of like what they've all been saying, to just like yeah, be here for each other, stand up like against like all of them haters, all of the like laws that are going up that are saying that we shouldn't exist, against all of the mean old white cis straight men who are saying that your pronouns are wrong.
I want to just sort of end up by, I don't even really want to leave this up for debate. I really just want us to end by, if we are able and consenting, to stand up and to celebrate and express our gratitude, these amazing, amazing youth.